Side still to many of the people out here. There are satellite trucks here from every station in Los Angeles, and as you know, and many of our viewers probably know, they are able to punch up the news conference and have a television monitor, so you could see all of these 60 or so Teamsters members out here at Local 396 out here with their heads peering into the satellite trucks just to hear the news. As soon as we were able to give it to our viewers, the folks out here on the line were able to get it too. And so let's just ask the strike chief out here, Carlos Cruz. Tell us, first off, how would you describe the mood among the members?
The mood is kind of optimistic. I mean, we have got the word that that they have reached a tentative agreement, but we're kind of optimistic because we have not officially got the proposals of what was negotiated. So we're just waiting. I mean, we're anxious. We're anticipating to find out exactly what it was in that tentative agreement.
Tell us now how this makes you feel after 15 days. Now, we had a heat wave out here in Los Angeles. There were temperatures of up to 112 degrees. Your people were here on the line 24 hours a day.
There's a lot of relief. The guys are relieved. They're really anxious to get back to work. That's the main thing. They want to get back to work. They're ready to get back to work. It's just how long it's going to take for UPS to give us the word that we can go back to work. All
right. Thank you very much for joining. I just wanted to ask this gentleman behind us here, how did the news hit you?
Great. Finally get to make my bill payments.
Can you tell us just from a personal standpoint, I know $55 a week was what you were able to get. You were entering your third week, no paycheck.
It was hard, but, you know, I just put all my faith in Carey.
Now, do you have, are you a part-time staffer?
I'm a part-time that's been here 13 years.
And so, and what do you specifically want to see? I'm sure the pension is very important to you, but as far as it relates to part-time workers?
More full-time jobs. That's what I've been waiting for.
All right. And so that is the situation from here. We did have a lot of Teamsters members that I would see driving up just to get the news. A lot of them got the news. There were high fives, there were hugs, and then they'd get in their cars and go back. But we still have a pretty healthy line out here of some pretty excited Teamsters members. Angela?
Well, I can imagine. But Jennifer, were they surprised or did they anticipate this?
Well, let's just ask them. Were you surprised or did you anticipate what happened? Did you anticipate the timing?
No, we didn't. I mean, we knew it was going to be a long, hard struggle, but we like my brother right here said, we put our faith in Ron Carey, our president, and we were just hoping that he would negotiate a good deal. I mean, we were ready to stick it out as long as he said. So
you didn't put much thought into how much longer will I have to be out here?
It entered my mind, but like, you know, like my brother said, I put my faith in Ron Carey, so.
I wanted to ask if you had any concern about your customer base now. A lot of us have had to find alternative ways to get our packages moving. Do you think that that your group will now be able to turn its attention to trying to restore confidence?
Absolutely, and when a strike, you know, it's unfortunate that when there is a strike, we lost customers. Some of our customers have gone to other shippers, but like I said, we're ready to get back to work, and hopefully our customers will come back to us, and we can provide them with the best service around town.
All right, thank you very, very much. And that is the latest here from the West Los Angeles hub of the United Parcel Service. Angela?
All right, Jennifer, thank you very much. CNN's coverage of developments in the UPS strike will continue right after this.
To come over here. We've reached an agreement with UPS that provides the good jobs that America needs. Our members were the successful key. They were the ones who made things happen, the solidarity, the support. We won in this agreement 10,000 new full-time jobs by combining existing low-wage part-time positions. That is in addition to the full-time opportunities that are normally created through growth in the company or people leaving for other reasons. We won very large pension increases, the same or better increases the company already said it would provide. But these plans are now under the Teamster pension plans as they have been, not a company-controlled pension plan. Under our largest fund, the Central State Pension Plan, a UPS worker will be able to retire with 30 years of service with a pension of over $3,000 a month. And that is 50% more than the current benefit. Our members also won substantial wage increases, including extra increases for part-timers. A part-timer who was making $11 an hour before, and that's the number that the company quoted, will now be making more than $15 by the end of this 5-year agreement. This agreement replaces subcontractors with UPS workers. So as UPS grows, so do jobs grow. We won safety protection for our members who handle heavy packages. We also want a guarantee that if the company ever wants to raise the package limit, it must first negotiate an agreement with the union for a safe way to do it. It is now clear, and it should be clear to everyone in this room, why we didn't put the company's July 30th offer to a vote to our members. In virtually every area, this agreement is much, much better than the last offer before the strike. Our fight for good jobs in America marks a historic turning point for working people in this country. I remember in the 1980s when the Air Traffic Controllers Union, PATCO, was wiped out. For 15 years after that, employers all across the country cut jobs, cut pensions, cut health coverage, and stepped on workers' rights. Working people were on the run, but not anymore. This strike marks a new era. American workers have shown that if we stand up to corporate greed, this victory sends a signal that American workers are on the move again. After 15 years of taking it on the chin, working families are telling big companies that we will fight for the American dream. This is not just a Teamster victory. This is a victory for all working people. And our members, the courage that they have shown, have helped make that happen. And now I'll take questions.
Carey, when do you tell your members to go back to work?
There is a process that takes place. We bring in the National Committee. We review the agreement with them first. We then have a two-man committee, which this takes place tomorrow. And after that two-man committee, subject to their approval, we will then start returning members to work.
Mr. Carey, Wednesday or Thursday?
That may be tomorrow night, subject to the needs of the company's operations.
Mr. Carey, what about the 15,000 workers that the company at one time threatened to lay off? Is that going to happen or not?
Well, it's obviously that was a scare tactic. It was intimidation. And as I've said repeatedly, the customers, the result of a 15,000 layoff would mean that the customers leave. But the fact of the matter is the customer looks at the driver. That's the relationship. The driver has helped build this company. The driver will now go back out there and bring those customers back. So I don't believe that it's 15,000. It was one of the tactics that were used.
Will there be any layoffs?
I'm sure there will at the very beginning. There is this process to get people back to work. Obviously, in some locations, there are no packages. And so as a result of that, you can't bring everyone back. It takes time to bring them back.
You've talked about many victories in the contract. Did you make any concessions? And if so, can you tell us what they were?
Well, I don't consider it a concession. I think to get where we had to be with the creation of good full-time jobs, taking existing part-time jobs and creating that. Secure pensions, health and welfare, substantial increases in pay rates. To get that done, you had to look over a 5-year period. I would have preferred a 3-year contract or a 4-year contract. And so that's what it took to get it done.
Is there a new inside full-time rate that will be less than $19.95, and what will be the $19.95 an hour, and what will be the new starting rate for sorters and loaders? Will it be above $8 or $9?
What you really have there now is part-timers who are basically doing that work, and they make between $8 and $9 subject to the amount of time they're there. We have created $8 or $9 rates existed. We have created a new inside rate, which is $15. And by the end of this agreement, it ends up as 17 and change. And I'm not quite sure I know. 1770. However, that is where a good portion of the creation of good full-time jobs will come from.
Mr. Carey, can you give a dollar value on the package of benefits to your work members? And two, on the pensions, given that what you secured was essentially the offer the company was offering to a single employer plan, can you say how your workers have benefited from this 2-week strike of pensioners?
Well, first of all, you said essentially the same thing. I said quite different. I said the same and much better. There are many pension plans around the country that might be providing $3,500 for 30 years and out. I use that as an example because that is a large area and everyone can relate to that. The second part of the question was, under a company-controlled plan, the money that comes in as a result of investment would have gone back into the company's pockets. That money now goes back into the fund to provide additional benefits, additional protection, increase in the benefits as necessary. In other words, that money is used solely for the participants, whereas under the company-controlled plan, it would have been used for them to purchase planes, it could have been used for bonuses and perks and everything else.
Mr. Carey, you mentioned that there's a philosophical effect of labor no longer being on the run. Practically, how will people see the ripple effect on the job market, on the labor market?
I think you have to look how this has stirred this nation. I think you have to look at the people that were involved. Our picket lines were jammed with non-union people coming over, the communities coming over, supplying food, making donations. I think this has stirred this country because it is what this country needs. Decent jobs, a chance for the dream, a chance to purchase a home, to bring your children up properly, be able to send them to college. This is an issue that has been confronting this country and this company, and it's been swept under the carpet. Enough is enough, and it's about time that people start fighting back on this, and you have seen what has taken place.
Would it be higher wages, lower wages, fewer jobs, more jobs? I mean, what are we going to see in the labor market as a result of what you agreed to today?
Well, first of all, I think you have to see that, number one, working people have been taking it on the chin for I don't know how long now, and that's got to stop. There has to be a different approach to that. Number one, you have to look at, there are areas where part-time jobs, that's the only way it works. But you don't structure your operation for that. You don't expand that. You try to create good, decent, full-time jobs. That helps the community. That helps the member. That provides the kind of dreams and hopes that people want. But it also helps business. They purchase homes, they buy cars. And so that should be the trend.
How does the public support? How does the public?
Let me do this, I'm sorry.
Oh, could you just clarify, when you talk about these 10,000 new jobs, are you combining these part-time jobs? I mean, it doesn't sound like you're saying these part-timers will become full-timers. You're talking about combining, is it possible
They will become full part-timers, 10,000 over the term of this agreement, and I would probably say that you're talking about 20,000 new full-time jobs as a result of 10,000 in growth. And I think the company has quoted time and time again, there's been something like 13,000 new jobs created. So it's 10,000 in normal growth, normal attrition, people leaving. It's another 10,000 that we negotiated that they now must create full-time jobs where there were no full-time jobs. So the answer to your question is they are newly created full-time jobs.
And how does that differ from what they proposed?
They proposed 1,000.
Was there a breakthrough moment in the process?
There were many breakthrough moments, but it certainly wasn't about progress. It was, let's get the hell out of here.
Yesterday, Mr. Carey, that there had been no agreement made. It's kind of hard to believe that all the agreements were made today. Was that, do you believe that your representation was fair throughout?
Yes. And why? Absolutely. We have talked about all of these areas. One couldn't have spent the amount of time that we were there discussing nothing. We talked about all of these areas. And each one of these areas, as I said from the very beginning, it's complex because when you talk about creating good full-time jobs, there are a number of issues that fit into that. Number one, the issue of it's a cost. Where does that come from? Do you take it from the total package? Number two, as you go through that, not only is there a cost there, there's then an additional cost that would go to the health plans and the pension plans. Whereas under the part-time concept, most of that went into the company plans. So there are many complex areas. You might get an agreement in one area, something they're entertaining, but there was never really a commitment on it. There was never, we agreed with it. And so that was a difficult process on that issue, on the issue of health and safety, on the issues of wages, on the issues of the pension. And so if you don't have everything agreed to, you have nothing agreed to. I must tell you, in the last 20 minutes, before we came downstairs over at the Hyatt, there was a situation which would have driven you folks crazy, that there was no agreement and that we were headed out the door on things we thought they agreed to. And so what we have done was to try to tie everything down, get agreements in every one of these areas in language form so that tomorrow when you wake up it doesn't disappear.
So you were on the way out? This almost broke down at the 11 o'clock hour?
Yes.
What was the point of contention?
Pardon?
What was the point of contention where you...
There was a number of different issues where the language had not been changed, but there was an agreement to change the language, which met the union's position. And when we looked at the language, we said, you know, it's very possible someone is trying to sneak it in. But after further discussions with them, up and down, the result was they agreed to that. And I would say out of 80% of the issues that were in contention, the company agreed, they agreed to it, but that it, in fact, was not changed in the typed form. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Play any role whatsoever in the negotiations?
I think the encouragement to try to get the parties together through the Secretary of Labor, to keep them talking, that's what they should do. I don't think the government should get involved in the negotiating process. He did not, and she did not, and certainly Director John Wells did not. And so the real negotiating took place between the parties, and that's the way it should be.
Did you ever detect change?
I'm going to go back there, and I'll come right back to you. Did you have a question back there?
In terms of, did you have pressure from within, from the union, in terms of the strike fund running out, in terms of people crossing picket lines?
Well, first of all, if you measure 185,000, I must tell you that very few have crossed the picket lines, and those that did probably were either non-union or supervisors. I was out, if you were out here today, you saw there was a brown truck parked here. There was a brown truck parked around there to give you the illusion that it's business as usual. But that was like the Trojan horse. No, this was not. Our members told us what the issues were. They told us what the fight was about, the things that are important for America, the things that are important for their future. And the result was their support. And they ought to be congratulated for unwavering support on those picket lines. And as you can see, there was very little violence and very little activity other than just the support for the union. And the communities and just good old America, working people in this country, have been so supportive. I don't control the Gallup poll.
To what degree did the polling information about support for your issue here translate into leverage at the party during these sessions?
Well, I think it was very helpful, but as I've indicated straight through, this has been a fight that I've been dealing with ever since 1968, the creation of good jobs. Where is America going? What's its future? And so I think that that was helpful, but there was a lot of work done. I mean, members out. This is 5 months. This is not just this past 2 weeks. 5 months of negotiations. 5 months of getting our members involved. That's the key. Membership involvement. The negotiations take place in the street. It's the support. It's building that support. It's letting the customers know, the public know what the issues are. And everyone knows in this country, part-time America just don't work.
Mr. Carey,
yes, sir.
What did you leave on the table? Surely you didn't get everything.
Well, I can tell you that that the area of that I was somewhat concerned about was a 5-year agreement. However, to get the accomplishments that we got with the full-time jobs, with the pension programs, with all of the things that we have accomplished here, 5 years had to be in that area. And you will be given either when it's all typed up a copy of that, and you could see for yourself.
Mr. Carey, was there a dollar figure attached to the total package that your folks worked out, and how does that affect the company's competitiveness going forward?
Well, I can't judge what the dollar figure was because that has changed repeatedly straight through. And I don't know what the end result is. I do know that a full-time member would now receive over the term of this agreement an increase of $3.10 an hour. A part-timer will receive the same increase, but with $1 on top of that in sort of what we call wage adjustments or a bump. So the part-timer got the same general wage increase as the full-timer, but on a part-time basis, plus the $1 bump. Yes, sir.
Carey, as you know, the pilots are also negotiating contracts. Is it possible that your members could soon be out on strike again in support of the pilots?
Well, that's certainly possible. We will do everything we can to be supportive, but here we are talking about a tentative settlement, and we're now back out on strike. Obviously, we will do whatever we can to try to assist in any way, and you've got some very competent people over there, Bob Miller from the IPA, and I'm sure he can get that job done. They were extremely supportive, and as you know, this Thursday is the so-called Action Day. And a lot of those activities will continue on because this is a fight about America's future.
Speaking of those activities,
That gentleman had a question.
What happens to the part-time worker that starts at work at 3 o'clock in the morning, works until 7 o'clock as a sorter, crosses the yard, and then goes to work for air freight for 3 hours, driving a package car? He's part-time for 2 different divisions of the company. Is that the full-time job that's going to be created?
That may be part of it by combining it, where there is 8 hours of work. That's part of it. The inside is another part of it. It's all made to create the full-time jobs. And as you know, the company's proposal was 1,000. We are now talking about 10,000 jobs. So that means many of the people that you just talked about will now be working 8 hours, will now be receiving a higher rate, will now be receiving the benefits of the pension plans, the benefits of health and welfare.
Carey, you recall that the retail industry wrote a letter to the president asking him to intervene on behalf of them. What is, now that you're pushing the whole fewer part-time jobs, more full-time jobs, what does this do to the retail industry, this agreement, in your view?
I believe the folks that went to the president are probably the biggest violators of low-wage part-time workers. And I think that this is an opportunity either for those companies to take another look at where they're going, or the unions involved. This is a fight about the future. I mean, I can't believe that companies continue to believe that you can pay people low wages and that it won't affect the economy. It affects the community, it affects the tax base, it affects the individual, the family, and where does it end?
Subcontracting part of it. What percentage of UPS business is subcontracted? How much now is going to be UPS?
There will be no further subcontracting except for their high peak period, which has historically been in the agreement, and that was never an issue that was debated. We always agreed that November and December are times that you need additional workers. So that was never an issue. However, when they were subcontracting throughout the year and permitting subcontractors to do the work and then growing that concept, which has an effect upon full-time jobs. If a part-timer wants to move up the ladder, there has to be a vacancy. So let me finish. And so what you do is, if you give that work to a subcontractor, you stop the flow. Now what you will have is that work that historically was done by subcontractors will now be done by brown shirts. So there is no more subcontracting of work except for the peak periods. Ken, what was the number?
$30 million.
Last year it was $30 million worth. And had we had not taken a very tough position on this, next year it could have been 100, 200 million. Further erosion of good jobs that belong to people who've worked hard for this company.
As you grow the number of full-time jobs, the company, of course, has grown a lot of part-time jobs. How do you know that the ratio won't stay the same? They won't just add a lot of part-time jobs at the same time, if there's growth?
Well, we were concerned about 10,000 because the statistics prove that 10,000 of those part-timers worked over 35 hours. I mean, I think the argument speaks for itself. There's no reason for them not to make those full-time jobs. They may create part-time jobs, but it seems to me it makes a lot more sense to create these jobs where people have ties to these jobs, where eventually you can't do it in one leap. But what you're doing over a 3-year period is bringing them up to about $17.70, which is a decent wage. You're giving them the benefits. So it's a start of reversing that, and I think it's a very substantial start because, as you know, the company's final offer said 1,000. Here we are at 10,000. So I think that's been a major achievement. And, of course, we've got our guy here, Ken Hall, who is the co-chair, who's done one fantastic job in keeping the company very busy.
The starting wage for part-timers, as you all know, has not changed since 1982. $8 for loaders, $9 for sorters. Is that starting wage going up under this new
Yes.
agreement? How much is it going up?
$8.50. So it's a 50-cent increase. And then what happens is the GWI, which we spoke about, the wages of $3.10, that's prorated into the progression.
So wait, what does that mean? If I'm a part-timer, I start at $8.50 now this year, what am I going to see over the next 5 years?
You go through the progression. The number would be what? You'd be close to $12 or $13.
At the end of the 5 years?
That's correct.
And it'll be a regular progression of that each year?
Right, but that's individuals who aren't even here. So the starting rate was changed from $8 to $8.50, and everyone goes through a progression. Full-time workers go through a progression. So they would get increases subject to that progression, and that's how it goes.
Will the profit sharing amount change under the agreement?
There is no profit sharing. The hourly increase, I don't think I should go into too much of the details until I talk to our board of directors, which will be the National Negotiating Committee and the two-man committee. But I can tell you that the wage increases are $3.10. If you work part-time, you calculate that accordingly.
Mr. Carey, how much will it cost to send a package, or how much more will it cost? What's the impact on the customer?
Well, that's a question you should ask Dave Murray about.
It's a $3 increase for part-timers and full-timers.
Well, it's $3.10 for a full-timer because they work 40 hours. A part-timer is how much? It would be with the bumps comes to $4.10. So that $4.10. So that indeed reflects what the union's thrust was to start bringing those wages up. So their increase would be $4.10. The full-timer would be $3.10.
To 12.10 over the 5 years?
Well, now we're talking about someone who's just hired off the street. Someone who's hired off the street has to go through the progression. Just like a package car driver, just like a feeder driver, we're talking about someone who's here and out of progression. They would then get the $4.10 that we spoke of.
So they would be at 12.10 at the end of the 5 years?
You're talking about the person who doesn't exist yet would be at $12, would be at that anywhere between 12 and 13. The person who's already here and is out of progression would get the wage increases that I just indicated, which is $4.10. That consists of $3.10, which is the general wage increase, and then this wage adjustment, which then comes into the picture, is a bump of on each yearly basis of $1, which comes to $4.10.
Sir, then who goes to $17.70? Is it from the $11 hourly wage, 4 to 15?
That's a different classification. That would be the individual who is out of the progression and who goes into what we might consider one of the hub jobs. And so they'd go to $15. That would now be a full-time job. Those jobs will now be full-time jobs as the company works into the so-called 10,000.
Is that $2,000 a year, sir, over 5 years?
Pardon?
Sir, is that $2,000 a year over 5 years to get to 10,000?
Yes. And I'm just reminded by Ken that it was $17.50 is where it ends up.
Word went out at 10 o'clock that there was an agreement, and we didn't see you folks until 20 after 12. What was the situation at 10? Was there? And could you walk us through that last 2 hours?
No. Sure. We were going over language. We had the company negotiators. In fact, we've got Carolyn here, who sits on the Health and Safety Committee, going through all of the language where we believed we had an agreement with the company. And as a result, there were some areas where the company did not agree. And so from 10 to 12, we were going through this whole process with health and safety, with Article 40, which is the air operation, with the sleeper teams, the new concept now, which eliminates the so-called subcontractors. The sleeper teams now will do that work. And so we were going through all of that, and that's what took so long.
Can you sum up, Mr. Carey, with a message to corporate America coming out of this last move?
This is a victory for working people. And this is the direction that corporate America ought to be going, creating good, decent jobs for working Americans. They deserve it. the communities deserve it, and so does the economy deserve it.
What could cause it to fall apart at this point until your workers ratify it?
I'm sorry, I didn't...
What could cause this deal to fall apart before your workers ratify it?
You might have a better answer than I do. I don't have the answer to that, and I don't see that this falling apart. I think our members who worked real hard to win this contract, they deserve the credit. The community deserves the credit. Certainly, the public deserves the credit. I don't see anything having this fall apart.
Thank you. Teamsters President Ron Carey from Teamsters headquarters in Washington giving us the first details about the tentative agreement in the UPS strike this evening. We should mention that the UPS's chief negotiator Dave Murray spoke briefly earlier this evening at a news conference saying that the company wanted to address its employees before speaking publicly, and they simply said no person ever comes away from a bargaining table with getting everything it wants. Again, if anyone from UPS were to hold a news conference this evening, we will bring that to you live. Now, to just recap some of the highlights of Ron Carey's press conference this evening and what the deal means. Over 5 years, 10,000 new full-time jobs will be created by combining existing part-time positions. Carey said the union won large pension increases, the same or better than the company said it would provide, and it's under a Teamsters pension plan, not a company-controlled pension plan. He said a worker with 30 years of experience or 30 years of service with the company would get a pension of over $3,000 a month. That's 50% more than the current benefit. Substantial wage increases. Part-timers would get $11 up to $15, from $11 up to $15 over a 5-year period. And one guarantees that the company, if it ever wants to raise package weight increases, it must renegotiate for that as well. He said the agreement is much better than the first offer before the strike. So that is how it stands tonight, an agreement in the UPS strike. And Ron Carey also said it was a victory for working people. This has been live coverage of the tentative settlement in the UPS strike. I'm Angela Storr.